Hello there. Welcome to part 2 of my amateur honing videos. Now, once again, this is amateur hour. Alright? I'm not a professional. I'm not an expert. I'm not a hone meister. This is simply how I hone my razors at home. Now, we set the bevel on 2000 grit wet or dry sandpaper on plate glass. And now we're going to progress to lapping film. If you don't know what lapping film is, and we'll be using a lubricant now, which is basically H2O. But if you don't know what lapping film is, do a search on the honing forums on any of the forums, and you'll know what it is. Now, what I do is I clean the glass off really well. Then spritz it with a bit of water. Now, this film has been used once to hone one razor. It'll hone several before it needs replacing. And I just squeeze all that water out with an old debit card. And get some lube. Here's my razor. Once again, we're using X strokes. You want to watch how we present that razor to the hone. One of the things that you can watch is you can watch the way the water rolls along the edge of that blade. And if you don't see it lifting water up, then you don't have good contact on the hone, your razor's got some hone wear, or it's warped, or something similar to that, or you're not presenting the razor to the honing medium properly. You should have checked when you first begin honing the razor. You should know what the spine wear looks like. You should know when you set the bevel on that razor. The first thing you should have done was to lay that blade. And remember, we want to avoid laying the shoulder on it, but you should have laid that blade along the hone and looked at the edge to see whether or not the complete edge was touching that the surface of that hone. It was contacting it well. And you should have taken appropriate steps to remedy any problems in that regard. Now you'll notice I'm sharpening in a heel forward manner, and that shoulder is not at any point contacting the stone. And now I don't count strokes. In other words, I do, but I don't count them, and I'm not counting them now at all. But I don't count them like, okay, I did 60 strokes on the bevel setting hone, so I'll do 60 strokes on this hone and 60 strokes on the next and all that kind of jazz. I don't do that because that usually doesn't work out like that. I use counting a lot of times so that I will know when to check an edge. But as far as knowing when an edge is done, that is through thumb pad test, what the razor feels like on my thumb. Now, one thing that I would tell you is we did a thumbnail test on the bevel set. Once you progress past bevel set, you should not use the thumbnail test again. The razor's edge will be too fine, you'll damage it, and it's just not appropriate. So, alright, I'm going to continue on with this grit, and then we'll move up to 1 micron when I believe that this is ready. Alright, once I have got this edge pretty well where I want it on this film, and the test basically for me is just how much finer does that feel on my thumb, how much finer does it feel when I try to shave hairs off my arm, and I also do use a small magnifying headset. This one right here. Hold on. This lens here is just a little bit more magnification. I think that gives me like 6 power or something like that. And I just look along that edge with some good light. Sometimes, if I have to, that battery's dead. Well, no, the connection's not all that great. These are cheap headsets. There we go. And I look along the edge of this razor with some good light, just to see, is that edge even? Is it nice and shiny? That kind of deal. Not much, certainly not as effective as a good 30 power loop, but every little bit helps, and that's what I have. And then a little spritz of water on the hone, and the last few passes are a departure from the X stroke. I just about 20. Straight up and down the hone. Now, I don't know if this is necessary or not, but I like to see the passage of that water along the leading edge of this hone, or along the leading edge of this blade. just for reassurance's sake. Now it's important before you move on to the next grit that you clean this razor off, that you check, if you use tape like I'm using, that the tape is in good shape and not worn away, that kind of deal. And then what I do, clean that off, set that to the side, wipe down the honing surface or the substrate for the honing, and then I take again the little debit card. I like the idea that I can scrape along that glass and just make sure that there's absolutely nothing under that glass, or nothing that's going to be on that glass and under my lapping film when we're going to go to 1 micron. And the reason for that is really simple. As far as anything under the honing surface, the lapping film, if there's anything under here, even the tiniest piece of grit, it's going to affect the honing of that razor. And 1 micron back to the wonderful X strokes, and you'll feel if there's anything now. You looked at that edge with that microscope, or not microscope, the magnifying headset, and you saw what that edge looked like and the shine that was on this edge. Now, once you get this honed up on this grit, what will happen is you'll see that the shine, and that's the best way I can describe it, the polish, rather, that's a better word, on that edge is going to be much finer, and it'll be brighter and clearer and smoother. That's one way of telling. And that's along the whole edge of that razor on both sides. But for me, what I use is my thumb. If it doesn't feel significantly sharper than the 3 micron, I keep honing. So we're going to happily move along with this hone. Alright, finally, once again, alright, see now that slipped because I had that sitting there for a little bit while I got ready to hit record and do this final segment on this script, and it loosened a little bit, but finally about 20 laps. And you could do more or less. Or you could skip this altogether. Just whatever you felt comfortable with. What I would caution you of is don't get in a hurry. Speed is not your friend on this or on a strop. Keep that shoulder off the hone. Keep flat, even pressure, weight of the razor only on that hone. When you flip it, make sure you're holding it like that. When you flip it, make sure you're holding it like that. Don't get in a position where your thumb is doing this on one way or the other. You just want to hold the razor by the shank here, lightly in such a way that you're able to allow the razor to rest on that stone, or hone rather, in a nice, even, smooth stroke. Just using the weight of the razor. The only thing you're doing with this hand that's holding the razor is to moving it back and forth across the hone and balancing it so that it's a nice, even, level pass with each stroke. That's the deal. So, alright, I have cut myself somehow. I expect doing something like that. That's one of the things you'll learn when you're honing. You know, people say stuff like, if you get in a knife fight, you're going to get cut, that kind of deal. Well, if you hone enough razors, whether it's professionally or not, you're going to get cut. Just understand that going in. Now, most of them are going to be small cuts. Praise God. But you can get cut doing this. This is a straight razor. So, alright, I judge if this edge is ready. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go on to the 1 micron in the next video, or the next portion of this video. Alright, I'll see you then.